about my journey, my they them journey, like opening this new chapter, um, and preparing for like 2025, um, to be more mindful in how I speak about myself, because I noticed that I am starting to attract more non-binary people, um, as far as friendships. Like, non-binary people are starting to really see it for me, and just really starting to connect with me and the universe. Something is happening on a celestial level that is bringing more queer and non-binary people, um, into my sphere, and I'm grateful for that. Um, this is not me bragging or me being like full of myself. This is just me saying something that I believe is spiritually true. I think that that's definitely my mother space. Like, that's my Mafa space, my mother father space, my Mapa space, my mama father space. I think that that's the space in which I have always existed celestially, or I've always been rooted. I just was not aware of it because I was sleeping, you know. Um, I tell people all the time about the first image that I drew when I was 5 years old. It was the devil kissing an angel, and it was a masculine presenting being kissing a feminine being. And in my mind's eye, they were one. And so there's always been this narrative, or this conversation that's been going on in my subliminal mind, that has created this oneness between dark and light, chaos and order, masculine and feminine energy. Even as a child, I was drawing these things and illustrating these things that I did not yet have the language to articulate. So, now being in this space, almost 47. Tomorrow I'll be 47. Y'all, baby, if you want to look out, baby. I will definitely appreciate all your gifts and anything that you want to share. But I've already been greatly blessed as it is, so I'm not too much, complaining. We had an amazing show the other night. I sprung my ankle. When they say break a leg, I guess I was trying to commit to the project. I don't know, but we made something, and to be a part of it. And I think a couple of years ago, well, not a couple of years ago, 10 years ago, I would not have been able to be a part of that space, because it would have been too much for me. My conditioning would have caused me to make it an unsafe space. And so I'm just glad to see that, for lack of a better words, a old dog can learn a new trick. People can change. People don't have to stay. Like, when they say, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Sometimes people don't even know who they are. People are still discovering who they are. So make sure that that person knows who they are before you try to write them off as that. Have grace for people to discover themselves. Have grace for people to realize who they are and to learn who they are. Because sometimes people can show you something without even knowing who they are. You can't say, oh, when a person shows you who they are, believe them, when they're still figuring out who the fuck they is. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. Um, I legit, I legit had a, I legit had like I've been having a lot of connections with they them people, and I wanted I wanted my celibacy to last until, like, I wanted my next intimate experience to be with a they them person. Like, I wanted it to be with a person who has they them pronouns, and who navigates from that space, and who is rooted from that space of wholeness, and not really subscribing to the binary. Like, that was what my goal was. It did not go like that. um I went to Mississippi, I gave a cut up, and it was not no it was not no non-binary, but but the body was calling, and I knew the time was right, because I haven't been taking estrogen or testosterone, and these are things that, when I'm not taking the estrogen and the testosterone, the desire is there, but the desire is not great. And when I masturbate, child, it be dry down there. I'm an older girl. I done had things removed, and it's sort of like a hysterectomy for a male. I done had the stuff removed that makes things do X, Y, and Z. And so when I get wet down there, it's literally some chemistry, because the brain controls the sexual organs. So if you're really mama hadn't got moist, mama was wet, my father, mother, father, the whole one was wet. Oh, we were wet down there. We were wet. And so I knew, like, because that child, the desire had not even been there. It wasn't something that I was worried about. It was something that I was contemplating over. But everything happened, and the way that it happened, we cosmically orgasmed at the same time, which was very fast. It didn't take him long, and it didn't take me long, and we didn't have to do no anal play, which I am very grateful for. I think for me, I think I've always kind of thought that, like, at first I thought, if we all healed and we all began to see ourselves as non-binary people, and we stop, using gender and the binary system to label ourselves, at first I thought, okay, perhaps there wouldn't be a need for extreme body augmentation. Like, beings would not need to have gender reassignment surgery, or gender affirming care wouldn't be a thing we um if we if we celebrated non-binary people more. And I think, to a certain degree, there would be less need for gender affirming care. But I don't think that there will never not be a need for gender affirming care. I think that there will always be beings who will need to make certain modifications and certain changes to the body in order to have the experience that they want to have in this mortal coil, in this human form, in while being wrapped in this flesh, being spirit, having this flesh experience. I do think that there will always be beings and entities who, when we are engaging in coitus, when we are engaging in intimacy, when we are engaging in love making or romantic passion, making love, whatever you want to call it, fucking, I think that there will always be a tribe of beings who will opt to make certain changes in order to feel comfortable within that being. Because I think a lot of us who go on to have bottom surgery, um, some of us are not even really that invested with sex. For some of us, it's a statement that's saying, my genitalia does not rule me. This is not something that I don't want to be bothered with that. With that as a distraction, the testosterone, the urges, waking up with the hard-ons. For some of us, it's just that simple, bitch. You're messing up my aesthetic in this swimsuit. I feel uncomfortable. I can't do the type of dances I want to. I just don't feel comfortable in my body. It has nothing to do with sex. And when the sexual prowess decreases, when that stamina decreases after the surgery, a lot of sex changes and a lot of beings who have bottom surgery on the side of those who are transitioning from male to female, um, they not fucked up about it. They're like, okay, and but for me, a person who does like to entertain physical intimacy and who does like to engage, as I get older, there's just ways in which I want to engage. I am totally fine with topping someone, but I would prefer to top you with something man-made. I would rather penetrate you with an object than actually penetrate you with my anatomy. You know, I am more here for mental penetration, soul penetration, heart penetration. I want to penetrate in other ways. So I still have the desire to penetrate, but not necessarily a desire to penetrate you with my physical anatomy. And we were it's funny because when we were filming the clown show the other day, there's this scene where we start talking about being swallowed up. And so many analogies came out of that moment of being swallowed up because, in the Bible, Jonah was swallowed up in the belly of the whale, and and Jonah was swallowed by a fish. And the thing is that so often, we want these experiences that speak to physically being swallowed up, that speak to having a vagina big enough to be able to swallow the penis inside of it, or having a like just having these big holes that can swallow things up, and having a throat big enough to swallow up a dick hole. But what about those times when someone is just so engaged with you and you feel so connected that they're not just there for certain parts of you, they're there for all of you. They're there for the parts of you that you don't necessarily feel comfortable exposing with everyone. You could like truly be vulnerable with them. And so being in relationships that allow us to be spiritually swallowed up. Have you ever been swallowed up? And so that's just like a powerful thing. And I feel like them is the generation that has the capacity to bring us to this space of completely being swallowed up. Not just, this sex game where you're being swallowed up in the physical sense, where your anatomy or your sexual anatomy is being swallowed up, or you are swallowing something up, but just having the space and the capacity and the bandwidth to be able to spiritually hold people completely, to have the space to hold each other completely, to have the space to just wrap ourselves, to wrap our energy around that person and completely engulf them, in our being, and to be engulfed in their being, to be swallowed up. And I don't know if that's what TD Jakes was talking about when he was talking about being swallowed up, but I definitely have had the time to think about that, as my relationships continue to build with non-binary people, with people who ascribe to the they them pronouns. I definitely can see a generation of beings capable of doing that in their wholeness, because this is a conversation that we shy away from and that we don't often have. But the binary does create a lot of insecure people. And I think our infatuation with the design of those who are born with penises and fall under the umbrella of manhood and subscribe to the doctrine and these ideas that shape and mold kings and leaders and gods among men, like those who ascribe to that, like I think our fascination with them often is their ability to mask their insecurities. We know they're insecure. We know their ego is fragile. We know it's a lot of things that are going on with them mentally often. We know this, which is why they are so infatuated with conquering and having control and needing and that need to dominate, that need for dominance, that fear of being conquered, that fear of being consumed, that fear of being swallowed up, that swallowing, someone swallowing you up, that's a fear. Like it's one thing to swallow up your dick. It's one thing to swallow up a member, a piece of your body, but it's another thing when someone has the capacity to completely engulf you, to completely absorb and take on everything that is you, and that's a fear. And so, a lot of beings who subscribe to patriarchy and who subscribe to um, mas- um, toxic masculinity and who subscribe to that extreme machismo and all of that rhetoric surrounding being a man, there's a fragileness there. You know, there's a lot of insecurity there, and that makes it interesting. That makes it entertaining because you feel needed. And that's where this language comes from, where we hear things like the black man wouldn't be shit without the black woman. And y'all kind of groomed them to be that. Because if the black man were to evolve and embrace their whole being, embrace their whole identity, would we still then be able to use that language? But because this black man is not whole intentionally, bred that way intentionally, the jury is still out on who all played a role in this and how this manifested and how this occurred. But the reason why the black man wouldn't be shit without a black woman is because neither of them really know who they are. And most times, the black female, not in all occasions, but a lot of times, um, just in general, beings who are born with certain anatomy have to mature because they have a broader range of experiences. They have to be vulnerable. They have to take on other people's energy. They have to produce things physically out of their body. So that requires a certain level of maturity that a lot of beings who are born with penises never retain. And society has set it up in a way in which it's not appealing to even try to. Now, you know, and this whale, what is that? That's interesting. Okay. And this whale that is human life, that is human existence, is so expansive. And like I said, I see it for the they thems. I definitely think that um I do, even though I've had some crazy experiences with they them individuals, because a lot of us are claiming they them and claiming wholeness, but you know, we're still attracted to the binary. And you know, this is myself included. You know, we're still attracted to very binary things. We claim the they them energy. We want that they them energy. we want to talk about that they them energy, but when it's time for us to choose a partner or choose partners or people we're going to engage with on that level, we're attracted to binary situations. And I just feel like as we become more conscious and we begin to have more conversations from a vein of wholeness, from a vein of honoring everything within ourselves, the dark, the light, the chaos, the order, the masculine and the feminine. I think that the more we have conversations from that space, I think that culture is going to shift and there's going to be more healed people or people who are engaging daily in healing. Um, it's gonna be a harvest of beings like that, a harvest, a community, and more tribes of beings like that, and the world won't be so lonely, and it'll be different for beings like myself. I look at myself and I'm sure, like, as time passes, maybe 20 years from now, after a girl is gone, because I'm not really no girl that want to be around in her 70s and 80s. Like, I'm not really here for that. I don't even know about the 60s as of yet. But after a girl is gone, that's when, this reality tends to give people their flowers. And I know just from my own personal research, I can't really think of another girl who is black and indigenous, deeply melanated, especially from out of the South, who's had bottom surgery and uses they them pronouns and identifies as being non-binary. Typically, you do not go that far to be non-binary. That's just not how it works. And so I definitely think that my being is an indicator of a shift. It's an indicator that consciousness is changing, consciousness is expanding, and that we don't have to be our ancestors. We can learn from our ancestors, but we don't have to be our ancestors. We don't have to do what our ancestors did. A lot of things that we uphold now and honor now. When Harriet Tubman was alive, she was not celebrated. She was wanted. They did not fuck with her. The ones on the Underground Railroad did. When Martin Luther King was alive, his ass went to jail and ultimately they killed him. When Malcolm X was alive, he was killed by his own people. So the people that we celebrate now and that we hold at high regard, let's understand that when they were actually fulfilling their prophecy and doing their part of the work, the Jesus that y'all praise was nailed to a cross, was persecuted. You know what I'm saying? So the people that we honor now and celebrate now, child, Marsha P. Johnson, humiliated. Asada Shakur had to leave the damn country. People typically never get it when they need to get it. They get it 20, 30 years later, 20, 40 years later. And so I've made my peace. It is not my goal to be celebrated in American history. It's not my goal to go down in American history. My work is not about that. My work is preparing the foundation for the civilization and the society and the beings that will emerge after. That I've made my peace with that. I understand that. I know who I am. I know what my role is, and my role is not to be celebrated and to be iconic in history, in American history. Yes, there will be some tales of an emergence. There you will hear a little bit of this and a little bit of that, but I my goal was never, like, that's not my work. My work is not to be iconic in this reality, because this reality is it upholds the most shallow, the most superficial, the greediest, Yeah, that's the ones who get highlighted in this era. And I'm not bad talking greed. I'm not bad talking being superficial and shallow because everybody should have a seat at the table and everybody should have their season. I'm just saying that that is not my lane. That's not my vein. That's not where I'm coming from. And I'm in my healing process of making peace. Hey, Aaron. I'm at okay icon. You better you better say that. You put I and then put con in parentheses because icon people, because I'm a con, bitch. I love that. I love how you broke that deal. And that's so simple. It was right there, and I never saw it like that until just now. Icon people. So I don't aspire to be an icon. I don't aspire to be an American Idol. I don't aspire to be any of those things, but I know that, years from now, just because of all of the documentation that I've put out, all of the research that I have done on myself and my environment, I know that um, someday scholars and academics, are going to use the things that I've experienced because this is what they do. This is what they do. This is how society is set up. Like, do you know how many people did not have were not scholarly, did not have education, and went to the institutions that are literally like the center of human studies. Like, there's whole classes on these people, like literally. And there may be some classes going on about the stuff that I talk about now without my knowledge, because I know that I've been asked to come in and give talks at certain institutions. So there may be people already now, taking my content and using it for their studies, and not compensating me, and not supporting the work, and not sewing back into me. There may be people already doing it now. I would not be surprised, because a lot of these academics, if it wasn't for beings like me, what would y'all do? There's a there's a there's a black woman um there's a black woman that everybody loved talking about, and I can't think of her name right now, but she was from Florida, I think. And a lot of people bring her up, and people have even compared me to her. She didn't have any college education, and a lot of people will cite her and use her, and so I feel like that's what a lot of academics are going to do after I have transcended this realm and I am no longer here. That's what's going to happen in the shift. But see, right now, it would be too much like right to expose people to me, because it will create a shift in consciousness, and a lot of people would become elevated and would be so much more self-aware. And gatekeepers don't want that, because that's not how you keep a dynamic that allows such a small percentage to have access to so much wealth and so much resources, and you can keep the rest at bay like sheep. So if you're introducing a lot of people to me, in my rawest form, because a lot of times, when you're in somebody else's house or when you're in someone else's space, you have to adhere to their rules and their guidelines. Somebody told me this today. They was like, for you to be a healer, you're real petty. You can be real petty. And as a person who is actively and consistently working on my healing, I know that when I'm making tinctures, or when I'm, making teas, that shit tastes bitter. It tastes nasty. Like, I told my mama this the other day, because my mama is a healer, and I know my mama is a healer because of how well she works with plants. But and this is not really y'all business, but I'ma say it. But my mama, she run to the doctors for their medicines and for their pills. And I just wish that, my mama would, tap back into the healer that I know she is and that she has the power to be. My mama is a healer. I know she's a healer. She can say things and make them happen. She can make them manifest. She has a very powerful tongue, and she knows how to nurture life, because you could see it how well she nurtures her plants, and that's something that has been passed down for generations. But when you are doing the work of healing people, we have this Europeanized idea that healing is supposed to look like a magical Disney movie where you were sleeping and somebody kissed you and you woke up, or just all of a sudden it was just this magical moment that happened. But no, healing is a daily journey. It is something that we have to be consistent with, and sometimes it can be bitter, sometimes it can have a nasty taste, sometimes it doesn't go down right. But once you are consistent with it, you build a capacity to keep healing. You build you build the taste for it, you build the stomach for it, and it becomes a part of who you are. So the healing journey is not a pleasant one all the time. It's not always a sweet one. That's not real. The part about uh, the part about it is the conning actually works. I was falling for it for a while. Mmm. Mmm. The conning part. The conning part. Icon. Icon. But yeah, I was. So I understand why I am not being exposed, because the entity that I represent and the component that I represent on the table, it exposes a lot of things, and it causes even academics who have went to school and went through all these years of just learning how to perfect, how they're going to navigate society as is. When you introduce a piece like me to the table, it complicates things, because the institutions have done everything that they can to keep entities out like myself. Like, when you come into the institutions, you have to be conformed. Like, they're literally saying now in Louisiana, don't say gay. This is what's going on in the institutions. The children have to uphold their original pronouns, the pronouns at birth, and their names at birth. And this is what I would speak to society and call society now. Like, maybe like the P Flag Foundation, which is for the parents of queer children. Like, this is the time for y'all, instead of constantly trying to see how you can change what is, why don't you create what could be? This is now the time to gather and to create a law or a bill, or to create a community that refuses to name children names that subscribe to the binary. Hold off on naming them. Give them an like, let the name be something that, hey, okay, we're gonna name you this, but then at 12 or 13, there's something written in the law that if your name does not fit you when you hit adolescence, you can change it automatically. I think every person should be allowed to change their name at least 3 times in their life. You should be allowed to change your name when you hit puberty, and you should be allowed to change your name when you get your critical thinking matter. Your name should be allowed to change 3 times. I think that your gender marker, I think that this is something that should remain ambiguous until your child says to you, this is how I see myself. This is how I want to navigate the world. This is how I want, this is what I want to convey. This is what I want to model. Because at the end of the day, we are human beings. We are a combination of masculine and feminine energy. We are a combination of masculine and feminine DNA. We are a combination of male and female DNA. And so when you decide, not your genitals, But when you, as a sentient being, are aware and present enough to say, this is how I want to show up, this is what I want to model, this is what I want to embody, this is what I want to convey, that is when your gender marker and your name should become something more concrete. Okay? But for right now, no. And so families, people bringing your babies here to this plantation, this matrix, you need to do a better job of not just going along to get along, but really considering that things are not meant to stay the same. Seasons change, and when you birth something on this physical plane, you birth it in a particular season, and you need to understand the season. You don't move to Alaska where it's cold all the time and just bring motherfucking shorts and a t-shirt because hey, that's how I always did it where I was from. You have to change in order to fit the environment. You have to shape shift, you have to adapt, you have to evolve, or you will become extinct. You cannot be in a place where it's summertime year round, tropical year round, and you running around with jogging pants on and a sweater and a coat. You gonna overheat yourself and die. But this is how we was raised. We always covered up. We always wore a lot of clothes. Well, the climate right now is not conducive to what you trying to put on, baby. It's not conducive. So you have to be able to adapt to that. And so there's a fight to keep from having to acknowledge that. People feel like as long as we're not acknowledging it, no adaptation has to happen. But it is gonna have to happen. Trust me. Trust me. And if you dodged it, that don't mean that your offspring are going to be able to dodge it as well. But I definitely am here for the non-binary thing. I think that there's more work to do. I think that this generation is coming into it, getting its footing, and I think that as it gets its footing and we become more self-realized, we'll stop wanting to focus our attentions on beings who we just entertaining because we know you insecure, we know low-key you're a halfling, and it's entertaining. We got something over on you, and that's why we want to fuck with you because we ain't really got to worry about being swallowed up by you. We gonna be the teacher. We got leverage in this reality. I will be glad when society reaches a place where two non-binary people can be together and sincerely love each other and not be afraid to be swallowed up by each other, not just in a physical sense but in a spiritual sense, to be able to be fully immersed in one another, to be completely immersed in one another, the dark, the light, the chaos, the order, and be able to find peace, calm, understanding, prosperity, power, and all of that within that. I'll be happy when we become a society, when we become a civilization of beings who are not afraid to be completely swallowed up by each other, and we don't need to keep focusing our attentions on beings that we feel like we have leverage with because we know they got a lot more fucking growing to do. And because they have a lot more growing to do, they're oftentimes very good in bed, which is why we love thugs, which is why we love less evolved male beings, because we know that dick gonna be good. Cause he spent a lot of time working on how to slang that pipe. He ain't really good with being self-realized and understanding himself completely, but that dick is good, that tongue is good. And for some of us, that booty is good. So, you know, when we can start to move beyond entertaining beings because the flesh is good, because they have not done that spiritual work, because I think once we grow enough to really really just love someone wholeheartedly, baby, that's gonna make everything good. That's gonna make everything good. And we not gonna need nobody to take us to Pound Town and beat it out the frame, honey. Because baby, it's gonna be other ways to beat it out the frame. It's gonna be other ways to take me to Pound Town. And I will be happy, for that day in our community. And that's work that I still gotta do on myself as well. Amen, they want me. So thank you for joining me for this live. Gemini season to the until the last day of it. I'ma say that shit. Happy Pride season again. Um, Deeply melanated, ebanoid. I love y'all too. I love everybody. Cause I feel like at the end of the day, it all come from the same place. Amen and woman. Y'all hear me censor Black indigenousness a lot, and that's because um, society has really been anti-indigenous towards people with an abundance of melanin and a C4 hair pattern. And so, that's just gonna be my platform, like making sure y'all know that our whole lineage did not come over here on fucking slave ships. Bitch, I belong here. Bitch, this my home too. Bitch, I'm indigenous to the planet. Super Pangea, and we out. Down but now that I say cool, it keeps spinning and turning Ian Gani, Iyanko Kalukalo, which means I am a child of God Goddess. And if I am, then you know you are. Mwah. Tomorrow's my birthday.